More than that, you will teach her how to bear the weight, how to stand before the priest, his words like smooth, worn stones, and not flinch when he speaks of God's will and a woman's place. How to sit with the dying, not as a savior, but as a silent companion on their final, terrifying journey. This is the fragile nature of wisdom in a world that forgets. Knowledge is a flame, and you are but one candle. If the wind blows you out before you can light another, the darkness swallows generations, and you are left to ask yourself, in an age defined by the great wail of the plague bell, was the most common suffering not the swift, violent illness, but the slow, quiet rot of being utterly alone? It is the weight of being the one they call for in the darkest hours, the keeper of secrets, the witness to the final breath and the first. There is no confession for you, no debriefing around a fire with your peers. There is only the work, the next knock on the door, and the ghosts you collect along the way. In a world where every memory is a scar, what is the price of wisdom? And who heals the healer when their only medicine is to carry the pain of everyone else? It is the quiet, ancient truth that a mind at peace allows the body to perform its own miracles. This charm is not a lie. It is a gift of hope, a recognition that the most powerful medicine is the one we brew ourselves in the crucible of a believing heart. Ask yourself, was the charm for the boy to shield him from her fear? Or was it for her to give her a weapon against the darkness? Chapter 6, The Priest's Shadow. The rough-hewn door scrapes shut, and with it, the scent of the anxious mother finally leaves your small cottage. A single sliver of weak afternoon light cuts through the smoky air, illuminating the dust motes dancing over your workspace. Outside, a shadow falls across that light. You don't need to look up. You know its shape, its weight. Father Michael is walking down the lane. He is a man shaped by bells and books, his world measured in matins and vespers. You are looking for his smaller, quieter miracles. There, a flash of green and feathery white. You kneel, your knees sinking into the damp soil. Yarrow. You recognize it instantly. The soldier's woundwort, its lacy flowers a promise of staunched blood. You gather a handful, crushing a single leaf between your fingers to release its sharp, medicinal scent. A prayer of thanks whispered to the air. Further on, you find what you truly came for. Near a moss-covered stump, you see the broad, hairy leaves you know so well. It is a living inheritance, passed from the warmth of one hand to the coldness of another. You will teach her the language of the wild, the names whispered to the herbs that heal and the ones that kill. You will teach her to lay a hand on a fevered brow and feel the difference between a crisis that will break and one that will pass. You will teach her the sound of a wound that is knitting itself clean and the foul smell of one that is turning to poison. You have not cast out a demon or brokered a peace with God. You have simply stood witness. Before the invention of therapy, there was this, the profound, sacramental act of being heard. You understand a truth as old as humanity, that a body can scream the pain a soul is forbidden to speak. The door closes, and the silence returns to your own cottage. But it is a different kind. It is the quiet of reflection. They are the source of your wisdom, the hard-won knowledge in your hands, but they are also the source of an unending, quiet sorrow. We think of trauma as a lightning strike, a single catastrophic event that splits a life into a before and an after. But your life shows a different kind of breaking. It is the slow, steady accumulation of grief, like river silt building up over years until it chokes the channel. You are treating the soul as carefully as the flesh, for you have seen firsthand how fear can cripple a person more completely than any injury. Centuries from now, they will have a clinical name for this. They will call it the placebo effect, a curious anomaly they study in bright, clean rooms. They will see it as a ghost in their machine of science, a quirk of the mind to be accounted for and dismissed. They will not understand that it is not a quirk. It is the foundation, a promise exchanged not for coin, but for a mended roof, a loaf of bread, and the quiet, desperate understanding that you are all, ultimately, in this together. Ask yourself, in a world where your neighbor's survival is inextricably tied to your own, is kindness a choice? Or is it the most pragmatic tool you have? The drone of the village, the blacksmith's hammer, a distant shouting match, the lowing of cattle, fades into a profound, living silence. This is a different kind of church. The forest is your library, your laboratory, your cathedral. You move with a purpose that looks like aimlessness to the untrained eye. Your gaze sweeps the undergrowth, not for what is beautiful, but for what is useful. Sunlight, filtered through the leaves, dapples the ground in shifting coins of light, illuminating a world of secrets. You are not looking for God here, not the one they speak of in the stone church. You've held too many mothers as their own babes were born cold and blue. You've seen too many children wither from the bloody flux or the summer fevers. To bring a child into this world felt like inviting a new soul to a feast of sorrows. Your body is a field harvested too many times, and now it lies fallow. But this girl, perhaps she is the seed you are meant to plant. Your knowledge, the wisdom of your mother and her mother before her, cannot be scratched onto parchment. It is not a thing of ink and letters. The fear of the deep cold, of the long silent nights, of slipping on the ice and no one finding him until the spring thaw. An hour passes. The tea is gone. The fire has been fed. The stories have been told, released from the prison of his heart. When he rises to leave, something has shifted. He stands a little taller, the crushing weight on his shoulders seemingly lightened, if only by an ounce. The pain in his back is still there, a loyal old dog, but perhaps it bites a little less sharply now. You have offered no miracle. This is your geography of sorrow. You walk past the old oak, and you don't see a tree. You see the branch that broke, the small body of the boy who fell. His mother still crosses herself when she sees you. You pass the cottage of the weaver, whose second child you delivered just last spring, healthy and screaming. But you cannot feel the triumph of that birth without the shadow of her first, the one who came blue and silent, another ghost for your collection. Your life is a tapestry woven with these outcomes. The distinction is a luxury for priests and scholars. To you, it is a tool. The words and the stone will not knit the fracture. The splint and the boy's own resilient flesh will do that. But they will mend the mother's frantic spirit. The ritual gives her a task, an anchor in a storm of helplessness. She is no longer just a spectator to her son's suffering. She is a participant in his healing, her hope now focused into this single, solid object. You will likely never starve, but you will also never be free. Your life is not your own. It is a resource, a piece of the village itself, as vital and as fixed as the well in the square. Pride yourself on the cold professionalism of the future, if you must, with its clean bills and insurance codes. But in gaining that clarity, a thread was severed. Here, in the dim light of your hut, holding a piece of cheese that represents a child's life, you are reminded that healing was once a sacred pact. Section 3. The Forest's Apothecary. The ache in your back from the morning's labor is a dull, familiar rhythm, but it is not what drives you from the cottage. It is the memory of a feverish brow, the sound of a shallow, rattling cough that has settled deep in your youngest's chest. So you walk into the woods. This is not a stroll, it is a pilgrimage. The path, little more than a deer track, dissolves behind you. Here, under the ancient canopy of oak and ash, the air grows still and cool. As she rubs the green pulp onto her arm, a look of profound relief, almost magical, washes over her face. In that moment, a connection is forged, stronger than blood, quieter than a promise. It is the first lesson. You have no children. You see the ghosts of them sometimes in the hearth smoke, in the space beside you, on the sleeping platform. But your life is a cup already filled to the brim with hardship. He speaks of Elspeth, his wife, and how her hands, though chapped and rough from a life of churning butter and pulling weeds, were the softest thing he ever knew. He talks of the harvest of 48, the year the sun blessed them, when he could lift a full-grown sheep over his shoulders and not feel the strain. He speaks not of the Last Judgment, but of a more immediate, more certain terror, the coming winter. Their faces, once open and full of hope when they called for you, will be closed maps of grief. They will not speak to you. They will not have to. Their silence will be a judgment, a constant ringing accusation in the din of bartered chickens and gossip. Every villager who sees them look away from you will understand. Reputation in this world is not a matter of pride. It is a shield, a second skin. Every death chips a piece away, leaving you more exposed. Every life saved is a patch crudely sewn over the wound. It is a simple thing, plucked from the riverbed, worn smooth and gray by 1,000 years of current. You press it into her palm, closing her trembling fingers around its cool, solid weight. Her eyes, wide with fright, meet yours. You lean in, your voice a low murmur, the sound of a prayer said in a deep wood. As this stone is whole and unbroken, you say, the words an old cadence, older than the church bells, so shall his bone be. Is it a prayer, a pagan charm, a spell to be whispered only at dusk? The roofer Willem will mend your thatch next spring without question, because you sat with his mother for 3 nights as a fever took her, easing her passage with willow bark tea and whispered comforts. Thomas the baker always saves you a loaf, even when flour is scarce, because you saved his daughter's hand from a burn with a poultice of comfrey and pig fat. This system is the only safety net you will ever know, woven from 1,000 threads of shared vulnerability. But it is also a cage. This web of mutual reliance holds you fast. Your burden is to absorb the village's pain and to do it so quietly that they can almost pretend you and their own desperate fragility do not exist at all. Ask yourself, when you are both savior and scapegoat, who do you pray to? The saint who is said to bless a healer's hands, or the deep, silent darkness that understands, better than anyone, your need for rest? You walk a few paces, your eyes scanning the ground, and pluck a broad, veined dock leaf. Without a word, you hand it to her. She looks at it, confused. You gesture to your own arm, mimicking the act of crushing the leaf, of rubbing its cool, green life onto an imagined sting. Her eyes, dark as forest pools, widen. It is not just understanding that dawns there, but a deeper comprehension. A secret has been unlocked. She takes the leaf, her small, chapped hands clumsy at first, and crushes it. So you set aside the dried herbs and the murky potions. Instead, you reach for the small clay pot of peppermint, its scent sharp and clean, a memory of summer. You pour boiled water over the leaves, the steam rising like a quiet prayer in the dim light. You place the warm cup in his gnarled hands, and then you perform the most difficult, most potent act of healing known to your time. You sit. You offer no answers, no promises of a cure from a saint's relic. You simply offer your presence. You listen. He talks. Now it is just a whisper that catches in your throat. Her face, impossibly small and perfect, will stay with you for weeks. You will see it in the whirls of wood grain on your table, in the reflection on a pail of water, in the pale, round face of the moon. In a village this small, a place stitched together by shared bread and shared sorrows, you cannot escape your failures. They live and breathe alongside you. Next week at the market, you will see her parents. Or worse, is the devil himself lodged in the marrow, a shard of darkness in the bone. You know this fear. It is the true infection, the one that can poison the blood and still a heart quicker than any fever. Your work is not finished. You move toward her, your feet silent on the packed earth floor. You kneel, not as a physician, but as a fellow traveler in the valley of shadows. You do not offer empty reassurances. Words are wind. Instead, you reach into the small leather pouch at your belt and retrieve a stone. It is a piece of goat cheese, firm and tangy, wrapped carefully in a clean cabbage leaf to keep it fresh. This is the economy of your world. Care is not a transaction. It is a sacrament of survival. It is a constant, shifting balance of debt and obligation, a ledger kept not on paper, but in the heart of the community. Your wealth is not measured in silver pennies, but in the village's collective memory of your aid. You carry their fears of the bloody, unpredictable business of birth and death, so they do not have to. In our modern world, we call this emotional labor, the invisible, uncompensated toll of caregiving. We speak of burnout and compassion fatigue as if they are new discoveries, afflictions of a complex age. But they are ancient weights, as old as the first mother who soothed a feverish child through the night. You, the village healer, are its first and most vital public servant, yet you exist on the margins, your knowledge a source of both hope and suspicion. She watches the way you test a stem, the way you bundle the herbs, the way your breath does not quicken on the steep parts of the path. Her learning is not in questions, but in a deep, unbroken attention. Today, a patch of nettles lurking like green-fanged beasts has caught her thin arm. A rash of white welts rises on her skin, angry and immediate. She doesn't cry out, only winces, her teeth sinking into her lower lip. You stop, not with pity, but with purpose. You could give him willow bark for the pain, a poultice of comfrey for the joints, or a tincture of valerian for his restless nights. But you know these are mere gestures, charms to ward off symptoms whose roots run deeper than any herb can reach. His true ailment is an echo, the silence in his empty cottage where his wife's laughter used to be, the absence of his sons, now men with their own fields to sow and their own families to feed, their lives a river that has moved on, leaving him a forgotten stone on the bank. Chapter 11. The Ghosts You Carry. The gray light of morning is a thin, watery gruel spilled over the world. You walk home, but the road doesn't feel solid beneath your worn leather shoes. It feels like walking on a memory. Your own footsteps are too loud in the quiet, echoing the frantic, useless rhythms of your own heart from hours ago. You are not just tired, you are haunted. The work of a birth is a bloody, sacred battle, and this time, you lost. The child's name was to be Elizabeth, a good, strong name. For her, the snap of her son's bone was not a mundane accident, a fall from a tree. It was an omen, a hostile act from an unseen world that presses in on all sides. She twists her apron in her hands, her knuckles white. Her whispers are a frantic litany of dread. Did he wander too close to a fairy mound? Did he forget to leave an offering of milk? Was it the spiteful glance of old Elspeth, whose cow had gone dry? It is a simple remedy, but it is all you have. You show the mother how to administer it, a tiny drop on the tip of her finger for the babe to suckle. She nods, her gratitude a palpable thing in the small, smoky room. She has no money. You both know this without a word spoken. The Lord's tax and a failed patch of rye have left her family with nothing but the dirt under their nails. Instead, her chapped hands push a small, lumpy bundle into yours. Not the frantic, high-stakes moments of life and death, but the heavy, hollow hours that follow. Every cry of a healthy newborn leaves a ghost in the air. The phantom wail of a babe born blue and silent last spring. Every life saved is a stark reminder of the one you might lose tomorrow. The one whose loss will be laid at your door, a curse whispered behind a neighbor's hand. This is the fundamental, unspoken truth of your existence. You are the village's living vessel for its deepest anxieties about the flesh. Chapter 16, A Legacy in the Dirt. She has become your shadow, a quiet slight thing with eyes that miss nothing, a wisp of a girl named Anya. In the woods, where the air is thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, she follows. She is not a nuisance. Her silence is a form of reverence. You move through the familiar thickets, your fingers finding the serrated edge of a yarrow leaf, the soft fur of mullein, and you feel her gaze not on your back, but on your hands. His joints are swollen, his gut churns with a peasant's familiar dread. He describes a weariness so profound it feels as if his very soul has been bled, the way a barber surgeon drains a fever, leaving him a hollow, weightless husk. You nod, your hands busy with the familiar work of stoking the embers, but your attention is entirely on him. You listen beyond the words. You watch the way his hands tremble when he gestures, a palsy born not of age, but of solitude. You see the map of loss etched around his eyes, the deep-worn tracks of grief. Is it the spirit from the hell they fear? Or is it the living from the haunting silence that follows a final breath? The boy finally sleeps, his breath a shallow rhythm in the small, smoky room. The poultice of comfrey and egg white is already hardening on the linden wood splints you bound to his leg. Your practical work, the work of hands and herbs, is done. But the air remains sick with a different kind of ailment. In the corner, hunched on a low stool, his mother weeps. It is not the sound of simple grief, but the thin, sharp cry of terror. Her fear is a pestilence of the soul. In a world of noise, of church bells and market cries and the constant low hum of prayer, listening is your sharpest instrument. You see the plea in the mother's gaze, a silent prayer offered not to a distant saint in a stained glass window, but to you. From a dark corner, you retrieve a small clay pot. Inside is a thick, dark syrup, smelling sharply of horehound and sweetly of thyme. You cooked it down over the fire during the last full moon. From a dark corner, you retrieve a small clay pot. Inside is a thick, dark syrup, smelling sharply of horehound, murmuring the old words as the herbs release their spirit into the honey. The only sound is the gentle, rhythmic bubbling of a pot you set to simmer hours ago, before you were summoned by the frantic knocking of a husband whose world was about to be torn open or made new. It is a decoction of valerian root, a brew for a sleep that will not come easily, your own medicine for an ailment the village does not see. You sit on your stool, the wood worn smooth and dark by years of your weary posture. This is the unseen part of your work. The simple, profound silence that comes at the end of a hard day's work, when you have done all you can, and the world asks nothing more of you until sunrise. It is the peace of the survivor. He doesn't meet your eye, but stares into the heart of your small fire, as if it holds the only warmth left in God's world. A flickering saint against the encroaching dark. He begins to speak, and the words spill out like sour milk, a litany of earthly torments. A pain in his back, a hot nail driven between the shoulders by a malevolent imp. A ringing in his ears, he says, not like a church bell calling the faithful to prayer, but the high, thin sound of a trapped moth beating against glass. You are here to ensure that no one, not even a small child, whose life was as brief as a single summer, has to cross that final threshold alone. This is the last act of healing you can offer. It is not for the body, which is now just a vessel returning to the earth. It is for the soul, and for the memory of that soul left behind. When the flesh can no longer be mended, what is it that you are truly trying to save? Is it the setting of the bone that saves the boy, or the shared, desperate hope that something beyond your control will see him through? This is the cough that steals children in the night, the one mothers whisper about around the hearth fire, blaming it on night spirits or a chill wind from the wrong direction. You beckon her in, towards the weak warmth of the embers. You are not a physician from Salerno with Latin texts and silver tools. You are the village. You are its memory of what works. You place your ear against the baby's back, feeling the frantic, fluttering heartbeat and the coarse vibration of its fight for breath. You listen. You have been paid with a heel of bread, a raw egg held carefully in your palm, and a look of primal gratitude that is worth more and less than any coin. In your one-room cottage, the fire is dead. A ghost of smoke and ash whispers from the hearth. The silence here is different from the strained silence of the birthing room. It is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that settles over you. You hold them all, the terror, the gratitude, the grief, the hope. And for a moment, sitting here in the pulsing dark, you let them go. The weight lifts. You are not the healer, the village witch, the midwife. You are just a woman sitting by her fire. We chase grand notions of happiness and fulfillment, scheduling self-care into our frantic lives. But your existence reveals a deeper, more ancient form of contentment. Ask yourself, when every moment is a battle against death, disease, and starvation, what is peace? It is not a grand sunlit vista. It is this. The door to your cottage groans open, letting in a slice of damp, gray air that smells of wet earth and dying leaves. He stands there, a stooped silhouette against the fading light, leaning heavily on a staff of polished ash. Elric. His name is as old and weathered as his face. He shuffles in, bringing the chill of the outside world with him, his breath coming in shallow rasps, a bellows with a tear in the leather. The deep irony is that in a life so often filled with hardship and pain, the end was given a reverence and community we now deny ourselves. Sitting in this dim, silent hut, you are performing one of humanity's oldest and most sacred roles. You are not a physician in this moment. You are a guardian. Your simple, steady presence is a bulwark against the terror of the void, a belief that demons wait in the final darkness to snatch a frightened soul. The rest is up to the body's own mysterious wisdom, to the unseen forces that knit bone and scar tissue in the dark. We have forgotten this knowledge, the intimacy that comes from touch. We trust the perfect, objective image from a machine, but we have lost the language of a fever's heat, a joint's swelling, a frightened muscle's story. Ask yourself, when a life is in your hands, is healing an act of knowledge or an act of faith? The heavy wooden door creaks open, letting in a slice of gray, damp air that smells of rain and wood smoke. A young mother stands on your threshold, clutching a small, shuddering bundle to her chest. Her face is a mask of exhaustion, her eyes wide with a fear that is older than God. She doesn't need to speak. You can hear it from across the room, a wet, rattling sound from deep within the swaddling, the sound of a tiny bellows struggling for air. The sun is a weak, watery smear in the sky when you finally return. Each step is a negotiation with the frozen mud of the path, your thin leather shoes offering little comfort against the cold that seeps up from the winter-hardened earth. A cooper's house is a good house, filled with the sharp, clean scent of shaved wood and sturdy things. But the scent that clings to you now is older, more primal, the metallic tang of blood, the salt of sweat, the sweet, milky smell of new life. The cooper has a son. The mother lives. You look into the flames and see the faces of the day. You see the terror in the young mother's eyes as you confirmed the child in her womb was gone. Its life a brief, silent season within her. You see the raw gratitude on the farmer's face, his leg now bound in splints, his future no longer shattered with the bone. You see the hollow grief of the old man whose wife you sat with as her last breath rattled in her chest. A sound like dry leaves skittering across frozen ground. She does not thank you. Words are insufficient for this transaction. She simply turns and melts back into the night, leaving you alone with the weight of what you have done. You are her accomplice, her savior, her potential executioner. You are the back door, and in this world, for a girl like her, the back door is the only way out. They did not have the luxury. It was not a failure of medicine, but a fact of life, as common and as final as the turning of the seasons. We have since medicalized the process, hiding it away in sterile rooms behind closed doors, treating it like a secret shame. We have forgotten the ancient art of dying, a process that was once a communal, witnessed event. It was a final, vital chapter, not a whispered postscript. The boy's scream is a blade of sound, sharp and pure, before it mercifully cuts off as he faints. The grating crunch as the bone realigns is a sound only you and the father will ever hear. Working quickly, you slather the limb with a thick, green paste of comfrey root, the knit bone of the fields, a gift from the damp earth. You bind the leg tight between two flat pieces of wood, cinching the linen strips with practiced knots. The setting is crude, a desperate piece of battlefield medicine performed in a dim cottage. But it is all you have. Ask yourself, when your body betrays you, does a scientific label bring more comfort than the ritual of a prayer? Here, in this suffocating closeness, life and death are not abstract concepts discussed by priests in the safety of a stone church. They are sweating, screaming, and bleeding on a straw mattress. Your arrival does not bring relief, not yet. It brings a quiet, terrifying focus. You are the last resort before God. And as you kneel, pushing your sleeves up your arms, you know that whatever happens in the next hour will be whispered about for years. It will become your victory or your failure. There is no in-between. This small, quiet moment is a victory. It is a space you have carved out of the day's chaos, a truce declared with a world that is constantly bleeding, breaking, and begging for a miracle. In a life defined by the needs of others, by the toll of the church bell announcing a new death, by the frantic knock on the door in the dead of night, by the wail of a hungry child, this solitude is a radical act of self-preservation. It is a heresy against the communal suffering that binds your village together. You wrap the herbs in a small piece of cloth, your movements practiced and sure. She offers you a coin, a small, thin silver piece she has probably kept hidden for months. It is not a payment for a service. It is an offering, a desperate prayer to a different kind of power. Ask yourself, when the laws of God and man offer you only shame and ruin, is an act of defiance a sin, or is it the only path to salvation you have left? She takes the herbs, her fingers cold as she brushes yours. You are the midwife to her death, just as you were the midwife to the cooper's son's birth last spring. It is the same work in a way, guiding a soul across a painful and dangerous threshold, one into the world, one out of it. You are the village's witness. You stand at the two great gates of existence, birth and death, because someone must. To leave now would be to abandon this family to the stark, terrifying solitude of a world that has just been unmade for them. In their time, they did not hide from death. In this single, focused moment, your hands read from a library written in flesh and sinew, a text you have learned by heart through a lifetime of tending to the body's countless breakages and failings. Hold him, you whisper to the Father. Your voice is calm, a stark contrast to the violence to come. The man nods, his jaw tight, and pins his son's shoulders. You take the boy's foot in one hand, his knee in the other. You meet the Father's eyes, a shared breath. Then, a terrible, swift act of pulling, entreating his soured blood. You are not just a healer, you are an exorcist, a confessor, a comforter. You are treating the symptom, the belief, and the terror, all at once. We have since given names to our demons, cancer, virus, sepsis, but has naming them truly stripped them of their power? Or has it simply given the horror a specific shape? We still feel that same primal dread when a doctor speaks a diagnosis, that cold certainty of being invaded by something alien and hostile. Was it a saint who guided your hand to the right herb, or a darker whisper? The answer depends entirely on whether the mother and child live to see the dawn. This is the reality of your craft, stripped of all romance. You are not a miracle worker. You are a manager of crises, a negotiator, standing at the bloody, liminal gateway between two worlds. The air in the hut is thick, a suffocating blanket of sweat, fear, and iron. It is a clean scent, a scent of healing, but underneath it, you can still smell the metallic tang of the birthing blood and the sour fear sweat of the boy whose broken leg you straightened. The fire spits, a sudden angry sound in the deep quiet of the cottage, and you watch the embers pulse like a slow, sleeping heart. You eat your payment, the heel of a dark loaf, a sliver of hard cheese, and a precious, still warm egg, and it tastes of exhaustion and survival. Each bite is a deliberate act, a reclaiming of your own strength. While the lords and bishops debate the nature of the soul, you are the one who deals with the messy, inconvenient realities of the body. You are the keeper of the village's unspoken secrets, the silent confessor for sins the priest can only condemn. They speak of witches who sour the milk or blight the crops, but the real magic they fear, the real power you wield, is this: the knowledge to give a woman a choice, however terrible, when the world has given her none. You dip a cloth into a bowl of cool water and gently wash the child's face, wiping away the fever sweat and the grime of her struggle. Her skin is nearly translucent, a fragile parchment. You take her small, limp hand in yours, its coldness a stark reminder of the departing warmth. You murmur quiet, soothing things, fragments of prayers, old folk words meant to calm a restless spirit. These words are not for her. She is already drifting on a tide far beyond your reach. They are for her parents, a fragile anchor in the terrifying sea of their loss. The world of sound and smell recedes, and all that exists is the information traveling up your arms. Your fingers become your eyes, delicate and sure. They trace the line of the shin bone through the skin, mapping the unseen country of trauma beneath. You feel the heat of the internal bleeding, a warmth that is a warning bell. Your thumb finds the subtle swelling, the tautness of a muscle locked in a scream of its own. Then you feel it, the sharp, grinding edges of the break, a miniature cliff face of shattered bone. It is a gift from the bees, and therefore a gift from God. This thick, fragrant poultice is a prayer made tangible. You spread it carefully over the swollen arm, the coolness, a shock against his fevered skin. He winces, a low groan escaping his lips. You wrap it all in a strip of clean linen, a precious commodity you use sparingly. Keep this on, you command, your voice low and steady. Pray to Saint Luke, and drink a tea of yarrow and nettle to cleanse yourself from the inside out. These are streams of a deeper, more profound terror, the sound of a body at war with itself, of a soul caught in a terrible passage. Here, you are forced to confront a surprising, dangerous truth about your existence. You are the most vital person in this village, and also the most precarious. Your knowledge of herbs and wombs is a sacred trust, passed down from your mother and her mother before. But this knowledge is also a shadow. In a world where God's will is absolute, your intervention is a gamble with forces beyond your control. They had no legacy carved in stone, but every seed they planted, every prayer they whispered in terror, built the world we now take for granted. The silence of the embers. The day ends as it began, in silence by the fire. You have set bones, calmed fevers, listened to secrets, and ushered a soul from the world. Now, there is no one to tend to but yourself. You rub a balm of your own making into your aching hands, the knuckles swollen like river stones from a lifetime of kneading dough and resetting limbs. The scent of chamomile and lavender, crushed with lard, fills the small, smoky space. And then the bleeding. It may be a little, it may be a flood. Once it starts, only God knows when it will stop. You watch her face, looking for a flicker of doubt, a retreat. There is none. There is only a terrifying resolve. She would rather face the risk of bleeding to death on a pallet in the dark than the certainty of being cast out into the light. This is the brutal calculus of her survival, the choice between a quick death and a slow one. This is the surprising, silent truth of this world. Her parents, huddled on a nearby stool, are statues carved from grief, their tears long since dried into salt tracks on their exhausted faces. They have surrendered to the inevitable. Your role changes now. The herbs are spent, the poultices are cold. You are no longer fighting the sickness that has burrowed into her small frame like a worm in an apple. You are easing a passage. Your work has shifted from preserving a life to dignifying its end. There is only you. You place a hand on the Father's arm, a silent command for stillness. He lays the boy on the packed earth floor, on the worn wool blanket you keep for just such moments. The boy's eyes are wide, glassy with a pain too vast for his small frame. You kneel. There is no X-ray, no MRI, no cold machine to whisper the truth of the damage. There are only your hands. You close your eyes, not in prayer, not yet. You do it to see more clearly. From a clay pot, you take a handful of dried calendula flowers, their orange hue a defiant echo of the sun. You crush them in a stone mortar, the gentle grinding a counter-rhythm to the frantic pulse you see beating in John's neck. Into the crushed petals, you pour a thick, golden stream of honey. You know its power, not from texts, not from scholars, but from experience. You have seen it seal a wound against the air, seen it calm the angry flesh, seen it keep rot at bay when all else has failed. It is a primal cold, one that leaches warmth from your very bones, a reminder that the earth itself is indifferent to your hurry. The village is a collection of sleeping shadows hunched against the dark, but you are moving toward the one hut that is fiercely, terribly awake. You hear the screams before you see the faint candlelight flickering through the cracks in the wall. They are not simply screams of pain, which is an honest, animal sound. The village has gotten bigger, the dirt lane has been paved, and the thatched hut has become a hospital wing. But the profound human need for a healer has never, ever faded. You are the enduring proof that when we are faced with the abyss of our own mortality, our most profound instinct is not just to pray for a miracle, but to look for another human being who will stand with us against the night. They feared the devil's breath in the miasma of the plague, but still, they looked for someone who knew how to help them breathe. Your greatest skill is not in the charm or the stitch, but in knowing which patient needs which. The challenge is not to heal the body, but to first understand the shape of the belief that surrounds it. But some have other, darker uses. Knowledge passed down from your mother and her mother before her. A secret scripture written in root and leaf. You reach for the tansy with its button-like yellow flowers and the feathery gray-green leaves of rue. They smell acrid and green, the scent of bitter medicine. This will not be easy, you say, your voice low and flat. You are not cruel, you are honest. Honesty is the only kindness you can afford her now. There will be pain, a cramping in your belly worse than any moonblood you have ever known. The tallow candle sputters, its weak light fighting a losing battle against the shadows that cling to the corners of the hut. The fight has gone out of her. You know, with the cold certainty of a frost that seizes the autumn harvest, that Elizabeth will not see this sunrise. Her breath, once a desperate rattle, is now a shallow whisper against the immense, crushing silence that has filled the small room. You can smell the lingering scent of the yarrow and feverfew you boiled for her. A useless, bitter perfume now, a ghost of a hope. The splintering cry cuts through the scent of wood smoke and damp wool. A man, his face a mask of mud-streaked panic, bursts through your doorway, carrying his son. The boy is a limp weight, his face chalky with shock, but it is the leg you see first. It hangs at an angle the body should never make, a sickening geometry of pain. He fell from the old oak by the river. The father gasps, his words tumbling over each other in a frantic prayer for help. There is no physician to summon, no monastery with learned brothers miles away. To him, this is not a microscopic invasion. It is a spiritual failing, a punishment, a sign that his inner world has fallen out of harmony with God's creation. You nod slowly, your gaze taking in the heat, the swelling, the faint, sweet smell of decay. You do not think of staphylococcus, you think of fire, a malevolent heat that must be drawn out before it consumes the man entirely. You guide him to a stool by the low burning hearth. Your movements are practiced, a ritual passed down through generations. This is a plea older than language. You gather your leather satchel, its contents known to you by touch alone, a blind cartography of your craft. The smooth, cool glass of the bottle with the willow bark tincture for fever. The brittle, sharp texture of the dried yarrow to staunch a bleed. The soft, bundled linen, cleaner than anything else in this village, a small, defiant luxury against the filth of the world. As you follow Thomas, your bare feet sink into the cold, viscous mud of the lane. When the diagnosis is dire, when the sophisticated treatment fails, when we sit in the humming quiet of a hospital room by the bedside of a loved one, do we not feel that same ancient, hollow dread you knew so well? In that moment, do we not search for someone, anyone, who can offer not just a procedure, but a sliver of hope, a comforting word, a steady hand in the overwhelming dark? We have replaced your world of humors and spirits with one of cells and proteins. What the terror of the unknown remains. He watches your hands, not your eyes, judging the steadiness of the needle, the pull of the thread. He needs to see a physical act, a tangible repair. To one, you sell a story that calms the soul. To the other, you perform a task that mends the body. Ask yourself, which act is the truer form of healing? Is it the faith that casts out the demon from the mind, or the thread that closes the wound in the flesh? You stand in the gap between these two worlds, a weary pragmatist. Judgment is for the village, which would relish the spectacle of her penance, forcing her to stand barefoot in a white sheet before the church. A living sermon on the wages of sin. You offer none of that. You offer only a bitter cup. You turn to the corner of your one-room cottage, to the hanging bunches of dried herbs that rustle like ghosts in the drafts. Your apothecary. To the village, these are cures for coughs, poultices for wounds, remedies for a fever. Here on this terrifying frontier, you surrender the pretense of a cure and offer the only thing you have left, the simple, profound, and utterly human comfort of your presence. You just stay. Ask yourself, as you watch his shadow recede down the lane, what is truth worth when survival demands you perform a lie? And which performance, in the end, is the greater act of faith? It is swollen to twice its size, the skin stretched tight and glossy. A furious red streak, hot to the eye, crawls from a festering cut on his hand, a venomous serpent slithering toward his elbow. He does not say, "I have a bacterial infection." Such words do not exist. He gestures with his chin, his voice a dry rasp. "My blood is soured," he says. A bad humor has taken root. The language of sickness is the only one he knows, a poetry of imbalance, of elemental forces at war within the small kingdom of his body. You pull a rough wool cloak over your linen shift, the fabric coarse and smelling of wood smoke, dried herbs, and something else, a faint, metallic trace of old blood from the last time you were called out like this. A reminder. The man at the door is Thomas, the cooper's boy. His face is a pale moon, slick with sweat, despite the chill that clings to the air like a shroud. He doesn't need to speak. His ragged breaths and wide, terrified eyes say everything. His wife, the baby. It is not coming right. In our endless quest for certainty, we have sanitized, professionalized, and monetized the act of healing itself, meticulously separating the spirit from the flesh as if they were never woven together in the first place. We tell ourselves in our gleaming, white-walled rooms that we have finally conquered the darkness you fought with your bare, earth-stained hands. But have we, truly? Has the fundamental human experience of sickness, of frailty, of fear, really changed at all? For him, there is no ritual. There is only the brutal work. You pour wine directly into the gash. It is a raw baptism of pain. He hisses, his knuckles white, but does not cry out. You take your needle, bronze meticulously cleaned, and fine, strong thread made from sheep's gut. Then you begin the clumsy, agonizing business of sewing his flesh back together. Each stitch is a battle against his body's recoil and his mind's distrust. You are not a mystic now. You are a butcher, a seamstress of skin. The secret is growing inside her like a poison root, one that will soon become visible, and once seen, will destroy her. You nod, a slow, heavy gesture. You are not a judge. Judgment is for the priest, with his Latin prayers and his rigid rules that make no allowance for a moment of foolish, human warmth. Judgment is for her father, who would see his daughter's shame as a stain upon his own name, a blight on the marriage prospects of his other children. You have reached the sharp, unforgiving edge of your knowledge, the cold border where the healer's art ends and the vast, silent mystery of death begins. This is the most honest moment in any healer's life, ancient or modern. It is the quiet, gut-wrenching admission, I don't know. You see your own reflection in their desperate hope, the terrible fraud of pretending to a power you do not possess. When does the healer's comfort become a lie? Is it kinder to nurture a false hope, or to share the burden of a terrifying truth? For you, it is a matter of daily, mortal survival. It is the high art of framing what you know to be true in the language of what they need to believe. It is a dance of diplomacy with God and man, where one wrong step leads not to a bad review, but to the pyre. It is a stark reminder that in a world governed by fear, what is true is often far less important than what is permitted. The heavy knock on your door is not a neighbor's greeting. It is the sound of desperation. You unlatch the simple wooden bolt, and the damp evening air slips in, carrying the scent of wet earth and fear. A farmer, John, stands stooped in your doorway, his face a mask of pale, sweating exhaustion. His good arm is braced against the frame, as if holding himself up. The other is a testament to a world of silent, creeping dangers. You are not asleep. You are never truly asleep, but floating in that shallow gray space between exhaustion and vigilance, where every creak of the wattle and daub, every skittering mouse, is a potential alarm. Your feet find the cold, packed earth floor. It's a familiar shock, the damp grit clinging to your soles. There is no fumbling for a light switch, no phone to illuminate the dark. There is only the dying orange glow of the embers in your hearth, a single watchful eye in the center of your small, smoky world. We have mapped the human genome, split the atom, and sent our unblinking machines to the silent red dust of other planets. Our healers are armed with technologies you could not have conceived of in your wildest, most fevered dreams. We have replaced your herbal poultices with targeted antibiotics, your careful bone setting with titanium screws, your protective charms with the cold, sterile logic of the double-blind study. This one's name is Yorn. He is the opposite of the first, a man of stone and iron and deep worldly skepticism. An axe has skipped, laying his forearm open to the bone. Blood has soaked his tunic the color of rust. He does not look at you with hope, but with the narrowed gaze of a man watching a wolf circle his flock. He believes in nothing he cannot see or lift. To him, your chants are air, your herbs are weeds. He is here because he is out of options, and he radiates a hostile, cornered animal energy. There is a blockage, she whispers, her voice barely a thread of sound. Her hands are clenched at her belly, a gesture of both protection and accusation. An irregularity. The words are a code, a careful dance around a truth too dangerous to name aloud. But you have heard this language before. You are fluent in the vocabulary of desperation. You understand. The harvest festival, the ale, the young apprentice from the next village, with charming lies and quick hands. The predictable, timeless biology of it all. She is unmarried, and she is with child. Her parents watch you from the corner of the room, their faces hollowed out by grief, their eyes plead. In their world, a world of saints and demons, of curses and blessings, you are not just a person with some knowledge of herbs. You are a warden of secrets. They believe you hold the key, the hidden word, the forgotten herb, the one prayer that can turn God's face back toward them. They look to you for a miracle, and in this moment, you feel the crushing, absolute weight of your own ignorance. The line between healer and heretic, between wise woman and witch, is perilously thin, a thread of spider silk, shimmering in the dawn, ready to be snapped by the slightest shift in the wind. It is a line drawn not by you, but by the fears of others. It can be redrawn at any moment by a crop that fails, a cow that sickens, or the resentful whisper of a neighbor whose child you could not save. Today, we see the conflict between empirical knowledge and divine faith as an intellectual debate, fought in universities and published in books. Ask yourself, when the line between a cure and a curse is drawn by your neighbor's fear, is your knowledge a gift from God or a pact with something else entirely? Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. Chapter 1. A Knock Before the Dawn. The sound is not a gentle rap. It is a frantic pounding, wood against wood, a desperate drumbeat in the pre-dawn stillness, a sound that rips through the thin veil of your rest. You are intimately familiar with the sacred, messy mechanics of life and death, yet your world is steeped in a belief in unseen forces and the unshakable will of God. To be you is to be one of the most vital, knowledgeable souls in your community, and also one of the most vulnerable. It is to walk a razor's edge every single day, with the bell tolling for your failures, and only silence greeting your success. Look at us now. Look at the world built on the bones of your forgotten one. He flinches as you anoint the wart. To him, this is not sap. It is a holy unguent, a liquid light to battle his inner demon. You wrap his knuckle in a clean, rough-spun cloth and tell him the charm is sealed. He leaves with his shoulders straighter, the terror in his eyes replaced by a fragile, desperate hope. He feels saved. You wonder if the celandine's caustic juice will simply burn the wart away in a week, letting his faith claim the victory. Before the sun is much higher, a second man appears, dragged by a friend. A girl of 17 summers, with hair the color of ripe wheat and eyes that are usually full of a simple bovine calm. Tonight, they are wide and haunted, darting everywhere but at your face. Her cloak, damp with night mist, is pulled tight around her, as if a simple piece of wool could hold together a life that is threatening to shatter. She slips inside, a shadow detaching itself from the greater darkness. The smell of fear comes with her, sharp and sour beneath the scent of rain and wood smoke. The knowledge that the willow can soothe a fever is a fragile inheritance, a piece of wisdom passed down through whispers. But against this inferno, it feels like trying to douse a forest fire with a cup. You sit by her small cot through the long hours of the night, a silent sentinel. The only sounds are the desperate, shallow, rattling breaths that shudder through her tiny frame. But the fever does not break. The fire inside her rages on, consuming her from within, turning her life into ash. That power, your power, makes you dangerous. Your hand, stained with the green juice of herbs, moves to the mortar and pestle. You begin to grind, the steady, rhythmic thump, a counterpoint to the distant clang of the church bell. As you work, you mutter a short prayer to St. Luke, the patron of physicians, making sure your lips move, that the words are just audible enough for any passing ear. You call your remedies God's little gifts, and your work His divine will. It is a careful, constant performance, a liturgy of survival. The knowledge is a blessing. The knowing is a curse. We look back and call this folk medicine, a term that subtly dismisses it as quaint or superstitious. But it is a profound testament to human observation. It is the original scientific method, practiced for millennia. Hypothesis, experiment, observation, conclusion. Today, we isolate active compounds and put them in sterile pills, forgetting that for most of history, the pharmacy was not a building, but the living, breathing world itself. We will explore the lives of the forgotten, the midwife, the peasant, the leper, the monk. We'll uncover how their beliefs were not foolishness, but a framework for survival, how their rituals were a shield against a world of profound and terrifying mystery. We seek the human truth buried under 1,000 years of mud, myth, and misunderstanding. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Your life is a paradox. It always has been. You live on the edge of a village that depends on you for its very survival. A place where your name is whispered in equal measure with reverence and suspicion. You wield a power that is both a blessing and a burden, a blend of practical, inherited science and necessary superstition. It is a power born of watching, of listening, of touching, of knowing which leaf soothes a fever, which root eases a birth, and which words can calm a mind spiraling into madness. He believes this with the same certainty that he believes the sun will rise. He needs you to believe it too. You meet his fear with a practiced calm, a mask of ancient knowledge. Your work is a harvest of whispers and weeds. You beckon him closer, your voice a low murmur, speaking words that are neither prayer nor curse, but somewhere in the hollow between. They are meant to sound older than the stones in the field, heavy with forgotten power. As you chant, you snap the stem of a celandine, its milky, saffron-colored juice weeping out. The floor is cold stone against the soles of your feet, a familiar shock that does nothing to wake you from the deeper weariness that has settled into your bones over a lifetime of nights like this. You do not need to ask who it is. The hour tells the story. You unlatch the heavy oak door, not opening it wide, but just enough to reveal a sliver of the world. And there she is, Elspeth, the baker's middle daughter. Her skin, stretched taut over her small bones, is dry and hot to the touch. Her eyes glassy and unfocused, seeing a world beyond this one. You do everything you know. The ritual begins, a slow, deliberate dance against death. You bathe her forehead with a cloth dipped in cool well water, a gesture as old as motherhood itself. You gently pry open her mouth, forcing a few precious drops of willow bark tea between her cracked lips. The priest's prayers and holy water did nothing. Your hands, splinting the limb with willow bark and a poultice of comfrey, did everything. He remembers that, but he also fears you. He fears you profoundly. Your knowledge is not found in Scripture. It is rooted in the damp earth, in the cycle of the moon, in the wisdom passed down from your grandmother in hushed tones, like a forbidden secret. It is a power that thrives outside the thick stone walls of his church, and anything beyond those walls is a wilderness where demons and heresy might breed. This mushroom, with its innocent-looking white cap, will kill a man before he can say a prayer. Its twin, growing a foot away, will make a savory stew. This is science born of necessity, a botany of survival. And here lies the quiet, terrifying truth of your position. The same knowledge that allows you to soothe a fever makes you a person of power. And power, especially a woman's power, breeds suspicion. If the poultice works, it is God's mercy. If it fails, or if the neighbor's calf dies unexpectedly the next week, the whispers begin. Your town blames goats for the plague. Welcome to the Middle Ages. This isn't a story of kings, queens, or the jewel-encrusted chronicles of the powerful. This is sleepy history. We are not in the castle, we are in the hut. We are not witnessing the grand battle, but the quiet, desperate war for survival fought every single day. Here, history is not a collection of dates, but a sensory reality, the primal fear of darkness, the gnawing anxiety of a bad harvest. The weight of a superstition that feels more real than the king himself. In teaching Anya, you are not just giving the village its next healer. You are raging, in your own quiet way, against the great, silent tide of oblivion. You are planting a garden in the dirt of your own mortality, praying that someone else will be there to see it bloom. The hedgerow rustles. He approaches not as a man seeking aid, but as a sinner seeking an exorcist. His name is Aluric, and his eyes are wide with the kind of terror reserved for the tolling of the plague bell. He points a trembling finger to his own hand, to a common wart on his knuckle. But in his world, a world drawn in sharp lines of light and shadow, this is no common thing. It is a devil's pockmark, a seed of damnation planted while he slept. The knock is not a knock. It is a scratching, timid and desperate, like a mouse at the wainscot. It comes long after the vespers bell has fallen silent, after the last embers in your hearth have turned to gray dust. The note outside is a solid thing, thick with a damp chill that promises a hard frost by morning. You rise from your straw mattress, your joints protesting. Night falls again, a thick woolen blanket smothering the embers of the day. A frantic knocking rattles your door. It is not a sound of greeting, but of surrender. You are called to see a little girl, Elizabeth, and you know before you arrive that this is not a matter of a simple poultice or a calming draft. This is a battle against a foe you cannot see. The air in her family's small hovel is heavy with the scent of fear, damp earth, and the sharp, metallic odor of sickness. Elizabeth is burning with a fever. His black cassock is frayed at the hem, stained with the mud of his parish, yet it hangs on him like armor. He does not turn his head, does not offer a greeting, but you feel his gaze slide over your doorway like a cold stone. It is a look you know as well as you know the veins on a dock leaf, a complex knot of grudging respect and deep, abiding suspicion. He needs you. When Sir Reynold's son fell from his destrier last harvest, the boy's leg was a ruin of splintered bone and blood. You gently dig around the thick, gnarled root of the comfrey plant, the knit bone, its power residing deep in the earth, a stubborn anchor of healing. Your knowledge does not come from leather-bound books penned by scholarly monks, books you could never read anyway. It comes from your grandmother, and her grandmother before her, an unbroken chain of whispers, calloused hands, and trial and error passed from mother to daughter like a secret inheritance. This leaf, when crushed, eases a bee sting. That one, when boiled in water and honey, calms a hacking cough. A single thread of smoke rises against a bruised gray sky. A prayer from a chimney that will soon go cold. It is the only sign of life in a world that feels held, breathlessly, between the last dream of night and the first chore of the day. This is a life measured not in hours, but in the slow turning of seasons, in the ache of a body pushed to its limit, in the silence between one heartbeat and the next. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in fog.